Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vibing Out with Texony. I'm your host, Texony, aka Mr. World Vibe. And what we have here is a community to give local voices a public platform of shared ideas, knowledge, and perspectives. So this is season 2, Go Home, where a majority of the episodes will serve as a guide for you to return home. But not just our physical house, instead ways of understanding and discovering the best versions of ourselves, okay, which could be physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, and spiritually. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's go home. Today's episode, Go Within or Go Without, will focus on the emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects of being the best version of ourselves. And I'm really happy to have my guest Hazel on for this episode. We go back, we've been friends for years, and she recently embarked on this journey of becoming a healing coach. And so in this episode, you'll hear us talk about how a healing coach such as Hazel serves her clients, how to analyze all the different dynamics of relationships in our lives and heal throughout those, and self-limiting beliefs such as fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, people-pleasing, perfectionism, and other topics such as boundary setting and so much more. And so before we start, I just want to say thank you guys for being here. If you're listening, audio, Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're following, subscribing so that you don't miss another episode on there. If you're on YouTube, then hello, welcome to my YouTube. Please subscribe and hit the bell so that you don't miss an episode on here. That'd be great. And yeah, like and comment as well so that more people get to see this episode. I feel like there's a lot of value in this one. And one more thing, just a few shout outs, okay? Number one, Crushing Gears, okay? Thank you for the hoodie, Cody. He's been my friend we go way back, and he's got his merch. He's got his whole YouTube channel and Instagram page, Crushing Gears. We actually have an episode together that we did in season 1 of my podcast, What Drives Us, and it's a 2-part series. That was one of my most downloaded podcasts in season 1, so check it out if you haven't. I also want to shout out That Production Space for letting me use their space to do the podcast, which you're going to see. It's a great place for creatives to go and, use for whatever they need for podcasts or photo shoots. It's just convenient, affordable, and so shout out again to you guys, That Production Space. Thank you so much. And lastly, before we start, just want to shout out my grandfather, my Gramps, aka Dick Sanders Fine Art. That's his Instagram page and website. He has a mini series of paintings that he's selling to you guys. Let me show you all 3. This one's English Countryside, okay, 9x9, oil on board. This is my favorite one. This one's Mountaintop, and it's 8x10, again, oil on board. And lastly, Countryside up front, 8x10 on it's oil on canvas this time. And so my Gramps has been making paintings for a long time, for years, and he's trying to sell them. So they make great Christmas gifts or anything like that because they're so small. And I also deliver them to you or ship them to you if you're in the GTA. So just message me if you're interested in pricing or you're interested to buy them. That'd be great. And thank you so much. Let's get to the episode. Okay, so without further ado, this is Go Within or Go Without, featuring Hazel, aka Projectantiporta. I'm so excited to have our guest on our podcast. She's a great friend of mine, and it's funny because literally about this time last year, you gave me some insights and perspectives on spirituality and energy, and that helped me to become the foundation of the creation of the podcast, really. Mm-hmm. So that's how inspirational and influential my guest today is.
Thank
and
you.
So it's not surprising that she's embarking on this journey into being a healing coach, where she focuses on healing past traumas so people can rediscover the love they have within. Okay? So we're going to get into this and so much more. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you Hazel Antiporta. How's it going today? How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. Yes. My name is Hazel, and I've known you for a while. And just recently, I've been certified as a healing coach, basically. I got my NLP license, my EFT and hypnosis. And essentially, I figured out throughout the months that my focus was not on business particularly, but healing, because that's what past traumas, because that's what I've been through the most. And they say that whatever your biggest hurdle was is your biggest power, your biggest strength. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I focus a lot on people who want to come to me and they want to heal certain parts so they can like up level their life.
That's awesome. You're I'm sure you're helping so many people already, and you'll help more and more people. So
Thank you.
I just kind of I want to get into what a healing coach is because I feel like people listening, you guys might have heard of it. Maybe some people have healing coaches, but I feel like for the most part, we should go over what that means. But I like to start with a human question. Okay. And that's something we ask nowadays to people that we haven't seen since the world changed. And it's just, how have you been doing through the pandemic? And so have you been thriving or just surviving, or a bit of both?
I would say thriving. This is probably like one of my best years yet.
Okay, how so?
Even I would say that like even though there's like a lot of things going on in the world right now, because we're forced to stay at home, we're forced to stay in bed, we have to really work on ourselves, right? And the fact that like we don't have that much like busyness or like distractions around us, we're forced to just work on our like who we are as a person, as an individual, and how we have to like operate, right? Because most of the time people run on a mental cycle where they think that like, oh, it's A to B or C to D, right? But sometimes we have to understand, why are we doing that method? Like, why are we going around that mental frame? And then sometimes some people believe that like we're meant to be single forever, but sometimes we think certain ways because that's how we grew up. That's what we're used to, right? And so when we try to attach ourselves to something unfamiliar, then like we run away. Yeah.
Or we can grow, but that's the tough part, right?
Exactly.
Unfamiliar, right?
Exactly.
And so, okay, it's good to hear that you've been thriving though, and
Thank
because
you.
I feel like some people, they're home, right? But they have to they have to do that work, and that is the tough part for a lot of people. But it's cool. I mean, you're kind of like an entrepreneur now with a business, right?
Yes.
And it's like you said, it's different because I remember like some people just loved going out, and I know you love that too. You love being out and being away, but you had that time to be at home, and you got to thrive in that space.
Definitely.
Which is I'm happy to hear that. So
thank you. Yeah, like I think around the time last year, around this time, I could not stand being home. I had to go party every week or just go out and drink, right? And then even though like I was happy with who I was, there's always something I was running away from. And I knew that even though like I really wanted to do like life coaching and stuff, I knew I wasn't ready because I had shit to deal with in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, here we are now, and so you're working on that, and you're getting started with this career path, would you call it, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
And so I kind of want to take it to this point where you mentioned when we were talking on the phone recently about when we were kind of planning this episode, we were talking about an identity shift, right? From being focused on spirituality and new age like material to more psychology and applicable energy based healing.
Yeah.
Right. This sounds like a really huge transformation. And like on the phone, I was like, I couldn't imagine like how intense that would be.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's part of the beginning of becoming an official like healing coach. That's part of the process. So can you talk a little bit about what that transformation was like?
It was crazy. Like I remember just thinking about it right now, around this time, I remember like just talking to you about chakras and like energy sources and auras, right?
Yeah.
But then like I realized that like even like with like manifesting and scripting, like control like your future. You can write out the desires, the goals you have, the 5-year, 10-year, 15-year goal, right?
Yeah.
But is that really living? Are you like what's the point of trying to control your faith when it's not working for you?
Right.
So that's what I saw from like a lot of new age. It was like the idea of like control and like these tarot card readings. And when you try to control so much of your future, what's the point? Where's the fun?
Right.
Yeah. And like right now I'm more focused on a lot of like Christianity based like religion, but I still apply a lot of the energy things I've learned over the past few years. But there were like moments this year where how do I say this without being too descriptive? But I was trying to control something so hard, but it was like hurting my back so much. It was like I'm trying to swim to this end goal, but as I was swimming, I've noticed that I wasn't making any like movement. I was just literally swimming in one spot. But at the end of the day, I was exhausting myself. And when I had to look down and see what was holding me back, it was ugly.
That's pretty vivid description there. That makes sense. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta have to take a step back, and instead of being like, because there's a lot of material online that is very, that's like you said, it's like controlling, but it's also, they're trying to motivate you. They're trying to get you to go out and do a lot, but it's not so applicable, and it's kind of just too pressurizing where you should just, you said, enjoy it, have fun, enjoy the process. Because a lot of times what I hear with people who work hard for goals, right? And they want to get to the destination. You get there and there's just another goal. You're never really satisfied until you start enjoying the everyday, the process. That's where the most fun is, the process.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I get what you're saying with that, and that's the struggle, but that's what you went through to get to this place, right? And so,
like, exactly what you're saying, because let's say that you have this goal, right? And you really want to like goal after goal after goal, but if you're not enjoying the process and you're trying to control that goal, that outcome, in a way, we're like trying to program ourselves like, oh, we're confident, we're creating lives and we're like helping people. But why do you have to keep affirming yourself then? Why do you have to keep affirming that you'll reach those goals? Is that really coming from confidence or insecurity?
That's a good point.
Right.
Kind of takes away the natural process of it if you have to kind of just fall back on something that you said a while ago. If it's not what's currently happening, you kind of have to just live in the moment and go with that flow, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. How long have you been planning this path? Because I know, like, you talked about being a life coach, or not a life coach, a healing coach. You talked about that, how you wanted to get there, but you couldn't before. But has this been something that you've known for like the longest time, or something you've developed an idea over the past few years?
Past few years, I would say. This all started at my first job. Well, one of my first real jobs. It was at RGN. I don't know if you remember the marketing one with the Asian. Yes. And basically what I used to do was I started from like door to door. Door to door, or like those people who just stopped at major intersections. Like, hey, what's up? How are you? You know,
what do you sell? Like in that
charities.
Case? Charities. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
And that really like pivot the idea of that, like your mind is everything and you can really get what you want in life as long as you put your mind into it, essentially. And it just built this like mental toughness. But like I couldn't have done all that because I was literally at the other side of the spectrum. I was like really insecure, just shy, and just had no confidence myself. I remember. And because of that journey, I had like a life coach in between. And that was my manager, Jamoy. He's the one who pivoted me. And then after, once I left the job, I'm like, oh my God, I need someone here to like help me out too. Cause like, I don't know what to do. And so ever since that journey, I'd had like 2 to 4 life coaches. But then I think it was around last year where I was looking for a new life coach, but I find that I was teaching them. Yeah, that's the irony.
Because you're paying them.
Exactly. Like, why am I coaching you?
And they're not cheap. Like, it's not like life coaches. You have to invest. It's an investment, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day. Wow.
So then it's like, okay, I might as well start getting my certifications. And that's the only way for me to learn more.
And so since then, so that was the job that you had that kind of put you on the path to realizing that you can like, it kind of like grew you. Yeah. You grew through the job. Yeah. Right. I see. Yeah. Any other jobs or experience, like any other jobs that kind of kept you on the path or?
In a way, like I used to do sales at like one of the biggest retailers for electronics in Canada. And even though like I was hitting my KPIs and I'm still like doing like salesy stuff, I just felt empty. Cause like I was hitting like numbers after numbers and I was like getting praised, but like for what? Like what's the bigger reason? Right. And the last real job I had, it was like a marketing agency. I don't know. I remember crying, like going to work one day. It's like, why am I working for someone else? when I had like these gifts that I was helping her reach, but it was through my voice, but she was taking it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like, I can't work for anyone else right now.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's tough, but it's very rewarding to work for yourself. And so I'm seeing like this like pattern of like marketing business. So it's a big pivot, but you get to take those skills like into what you're doing now in a sense, I guess, right? You know about marketing business. That's always important to know, especially when you go become an entrepreneur and have your own business,
Definitely.
right? You can apply what you learned, a lot of the traits, the confidence, the business tools, and the skills with interpersonal, just meeting people and stuff. So you get to apply that to what you're doing now. So that's good to hear. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So I guess let's start talking about what a healing coach is, because I mean, I guess there are people who have heard of it, but they don't really know what it is. So how would you describe what that is? Like, how do they enhance people's lives, and why should someone like consider working with one? Like what use would that be to a person?
Okay. So basically, like a healing coach works, like everybody has their own niche when it comes to like life coaching, right? And for me, I looked at my biggest, so I made a mistake before.
Okay.
And before, like a lot of people were telling me to do like, become a business life coach because that makes the most money. And I had like sales experience, marketing experience, right? But like I just felt so drained and so tired, and like, why am I doing this? Why am I having the same feeling I had like at that retail spot and a marketing spot, right? Yeah. And then I started to realize, I had a call with like one of my astrologer friends. So before like the whole identity shift happened,
right? Okay.
And she was saying that like, why don't you work on like relationships and like trauma and boundaries, because that's what you always talk about with me. I'm like, you're right, I should.
Realization. Yes. Okay.
And then it was funny because like I was talking to my boyfriend about this a few months ago, and he was just like, yeah, just test it out, just drop here and there and just see what gets the most attention.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have been doing that, and how's that been going? Like,
it's been good. So like, because of that, instead of focusing on like just abandonment, a lot of people got confused with it. I went to like healing to like past traumas and like love and boundaries and like career. Because one thing is that I would say from my parents, my upbringing, my parents used to shut me down and say like, they used to label me like a troublemaker, a bad kid, someone who might go to jail or live on the streets, right? And if you like build that connotation with the kid and they grow up in that like environment, that mental state, they're gonna expect less for themselves. And that leads to demotion, jobs, relationship failures, right?
Settling, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's all due to past traumas. And because of that, I was able to break that generational curse, all of that. And now I'm helping other people.
Wow. That's powerful.
Thank you.
That is. I was actually mentioning earlier to my coworkers today that I'm going to be interviewing a healing coach, right? And who specializes in healing past traumas. And they joked about saying everyone in our workplace needs some sort of healing. Like they joked and they said that, but I feel like so many of us actually need to go back and reassess our childhood and traumas, because
100%.
There's so much opportunity for growth.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And
Always.
I feel like so many people need to do the healing work, me included. I think we all need to at some point. My question is like, why don't we do this work? Why don't we do this work? And why don't we go within? And then what happens when we don't?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Oh, you got me. You got a good question. I was actually talking to this with one of my clients yesterday, and 3 of them they've noticed so much change. They thought like they were at the like brink of insanity, the days before they called me. But now they like their mental, spiritual change has been so like stunning. I felt like that would take years to get, and they thought too. The reason why a lot of people think it's uncomfortable is because it's hard. Why do you want to get uncomfortable? Don't you want to just like sit and watch Netflix all day? It's so much easier, right?
It's true though, right? Okay.
Yeah. And even though it's hard, it's like going to the gym. Like you, for example, I know that you go to the gym at like 6 a.m. every day, but you know it's worth it.
You never regret it. You never regret it once you do the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just you taking that first step inside that cold shower. That's all it is. And the reason why it's important is because a lot of people think that like, oh, my work is not good enough, so I'm not going to post. Oh, this is like, it's not the right time to post. But like at the end of the day, is that concrete evidence or you're giving yourself excuses? And if you think that you're giving yourself excuses, you see that, find out where this started, where the root is, and reprogram. And then when you're able to program that, that limiting belief disappears. And then just imagine how far you'll excel in years or even days.
Because as you said, like one of your clients had like years worth of growth and a change of mindset in like a few days, like just instantaneously almost, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you're saying, so do that. You got to do that work. You got to go that extra step, and don't be afraid to take that first step.
That's because when people talk about like self-love and self-care, it's not just spa dates. It's not just massages.
And vacations.
Exactly. It's going inside where it's, yeah.
It's true. A lot of people want to go on vacation. They want to escape. Escapism. That's a huge one. I mean, I used to play video games so like religiously.
Yeah.
And then I remember one day in like grade 10, I was playing RuneScape. That was my game. Okay. Shout out to everyone who played RuneScape. I was just sitting there, and it was like high school. So all my friends, like, life was just moving so fast, and I was on there like, what am I doing? Like, what's the goal anymore? Like, I just got lost. And so I think people want to escape, but really you got to go the other way. You got to just go towards it instead of away from it. Right. So that kind of makes sense. So people are afraid. That's what it is, right?
The unknown.
It's fear.
Yeah. Fear of the unknown.
Right.
Why would people run towards fear when the whole life they've been conditioned to go the other way? Right. They think the idea of success is all like, oh, go to university, get this job, get married, and retire. There's more roads. Yeah. You just have to discover that. Follow like whatever your intuition says. Yeah. Like, for example, a lot of people don't go do podcasts, right? But that felt right to you, and you're still doing it. A lot of people are like, no, I'm just going to go to school, settle for 9 to 5.
Nothing against that. I mean, as long as you know what you're doing,
you're happy.
And it really has purpose for you.
You're just not following like other people's, your parents' beliefs.
Yeah. Parents will obviously say go to school because that's what they did. That's what they
security
were told to do.
Them.
Right. It is security. Okay. So fear, security. Okay. Okay. So like as a psych graduate, I can tell you, and you'd agree with me, when someone assesses someone's psychological like capabilities or their emotional intelligence or just their overall capacity for success in life, this is largely based upon the quality of their relationships, right? So you talk to a person, you talk to the people closest to the person to figure these things out. You would. So I kind of want to take some time to analyze the 3 most impactful relationship dynamics that I can think about, and we can collaborate, using your expertise in the field. Yeah. We can use experiences with your clients. I mean, not to name names, but just experiences with them and possibly even our own personal experiences. We can figure out the challenges and the solutions towards healing in these dynamics.
Yeah, let's do it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So, because I know you have a lot of different posts you said on Instagram with a lot of different topics. You're kind of getting people ready to learn and to think about different areas around this umbrella of healing, right? Essentially. Okay. So let's start with interpersonal. So that would be like colleagues, friends, coworkers, these kinds of relationships, right? Day-to-day relationships. Let's say you are at work and your boss is like, here, do this work. And you do the work and you just want to get it perfect every time. You're not happy because you're not doing the work properly. Like you want to for example, perfectionism, right? In a sense, you're working with colleagues and you want to improve and you want to be better than everyone else to get a better raise. Like, you know what I mean? So in that case, why do we struggle? Why do we aim for perfectionism in the workplace, for example? Is that one?
Yes, that's one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That was so cool. Cause my client from yesterday, the last one I had, she was struggling with perfectionism. Yeah. Oh,
I didn't. Okay.
It's all alignment.
So yeah, what did you have to say, or what did you guys talk about in that case? Like,
okay, I'm gonna ask you one question.
Okay.
When did you decide that you're not enough? When did you decide that your work wasn't enough and you had to compare yourself to others?
That's a hard question to trace back.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Right.
when you find it the first time
Mm-hmm.
it happened. Like if I had like the idea of perfectionism. Sometimes it trickles here and there, but for me, it happened when I was in like grade 1 and I was drawing and like the guy I had a crush on, he was just like, "Oh, you're not that good. I like Stephanie's better. Look at hers." And I'm just like, oh. So that had to do some rework. But like a lot of the time, even like the littlest interactions can make a huge impact in your adulthood. There's a lot actually. Like the most common limiting beliefs people have is like fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, not being good enough, or like I have to be perfect to do A, B, or C. But like for example, when it comes to fear of rejection, a lot of people, you can see this with coworkers, friends, they're usually like the people pleasing ones, right? And they're just so scared of being rejected. Like, oh, like I hope he invites me to the party. Like I hope he does this for me. I hope he does that. But it's kind of like, why are you trying to please them? Like, where did this come from? And usually most of the time, people pleasing stems from parent pleasing, because that parent usually was not there. Yes. And that goes into anxious attachment. And that anxious attachment might trickle down into their relationships. And that's when they're like, oh, I'm going to buy, I was a victim like this. This was my first relationship. I was like, I'm going to buy him this, and this. So like in my head, it's like, oh, I don't think he'll leave me. I'm like buying him so much stuff.
People, I mean, that in relationships, yeah, people buy things for people to please them. And like that goes in all sorts of relationships too, like interpersonal. So we'll get into intimate relationships and stuff like that. So let's just, okay, I guess interpersonal, we see it's a lot of different ways, but to sum it up, let's sum it up before we move on.
Okay.
What's our biggest takeaway from how to improve the interpersonal relationships, the day-to-day relationships you have with people, whether it's the person you buy your coffee from, to your closest friends, to your coworkers? Like, what questions do you ask yourself? Or, you know what I mean?
I would say literally focus, like what are your top narratives in your head that you're running around every day? Because those top 5 limiting beliefs you might have, like the ones we just mentioned, will literally affect every part of your life. Relationships, works, anything. Yeah. And if you don't work on them, you're going to self-sabotage everything. So it's not just one, it's everything. Because when it comes to healing, you don't only heal one aspect, you heal everything. Everything has a trickle effect.
Yes.
Like, for example, when you work on yourself, the gym, not only are you motivated to wake up every day at 6 a.m., right? But you're motivated to do other things that are hard. It becomes easier. It becomes discipline.
The way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Exactly. And that's healing.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So what about parents now? The way we were raised, our experiences, our memories with our parents, and what that leads to, the inner child. So let's go that route, because we all have a childhood, right? We all have memories of our parents, right? Or people who raised us, right? So what goes wrong there, and how can we start to reframe and relook at these relationships? Maybe parents that just didn't pay attention to you, like ignored you. So how does that show to our inner child? You know what I mean? So how can we start to look at our relationship with our parents? It's
like, you know how sometimes like a child might be neglected, even though like that parent was working all the time. Sometimes the mom literally just has to like provide a roof over their head and food, right? But that kid doesn't know. Like that kid might be 5 or he just wants to play with his mom. But in his head, he just might be like, Mom doesn't love me. She loves work more. And that trickles into abandonment and either creates avoidant or anxious. And avoidant is kind of like, I don't need mom. I don't need love. You know what? Fuck love. That could be them in adulthood. But then anxious kind of like, I need love. I need to be in a relationship right now. Yeah.
So different avenues can come from the same
perspective.
The same starting place.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard that quote. It's kind of like, pretend you're a dad, okay? And you had 2 kids, Bobby and Amy, okay?
Okay.
And basically, Bobby can be like, and let's say you're an alcoholic.
Just throw that on, okay.
Okay. Bobby might be like, you know what? My dad was an alcoholic, so I'm going to be an alcoholic. Amy might be like, you know what, my dad was an alcoholic, I'm not going to be an alcoholic. It all depends on the kid's narrative.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the narratives, like when you're a kid, you don't really know the full scope of things. Like you said,
Hell
that
no.
kid whose parents are not there, the mom's busy working, you see that as mom doesn't love me, but the mom is doing everything she can. So the narrative is really everything, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And that's when you, I praise time technique. That's like one of the modalities I use for like healing. And when it comes to time technique, I kind of like make it my own and bring like inner child healing. And with that, I ask like my clients, when you see this event right in front of you, what lessons can you learn from your future self if you were to come in? It's like, oh, mom's just working, but she still loves you. Stuff like that. It's like reframing that narrative.
Okay. Like, I'm just thinking like when our generation, well, some of our generation, our parents, how do we like avoid this cycle? How do we, like, you know what I mean? I mean, that's a tough question to think about if you're not a parent, but you don't want to accidentally set up your kids to have insecure attachment styles, because it seems like it's almost inevitable. So how do we kind of prevent this? Like, it seems like it just happens all the time. So how do we prevent that as emerging parents or parents currently or whatever, right?
And that's the difficult part, because it's not only from us, but it's also from their teachers, their friends, right? And I was like joking with this to my boyfriend. It's like, I'm gonna do like life coaching on these kids at the age of 3 every week. But
see how that works. Yeah.
But essentially it's kind of like reaffirming them that like what you're doing is good. So like creating that open space for them to talk to you, no matter what. Even the littlest thing, like, oh mom, like our little sister doesn't like because she did this. Like, no, she loves you. She just like, she doesn't know much. Creating those like little thoughts into their head. Right. And they're like, oh, you know what? You're right.
You really got to do that. That makes sense. And I actually heard on a podcast kind of related to this, Rob Dial, he does the Mindset Mentor.
Yeah.
The biggest like motivational podcast.
Yes.
He was talking about this perspective when you talk to kids. If a kid accidentally, for example, steals something from another kid or accidentally hits another kid, and they don't understand what's going on. Now they're being disciplined. So now they're thinking, oh no, I did something bad. And so they're going to see it, like you said, the narratives, right? If they get disciplined and put in a corner, then they're going to react a certain way. They're going to say, you know, I shouldn't do this, but now they know what to do when they want to act out. Like they're going to see that narrative very specifically. But what Rob said is a different way of reframing how to like talk to a kid in this example is ask them why they did it and have them try to explain it through their own words, through their own brain, through their own thinking. And then you can come to like and say, okay, well, you did this and that's okay, but next time you're not going to do this. Next time, what are you going to do? And the kid says, next time I won't. Next time I'll just talk to them. You know, the kid figures out, learns through their own, and they kind of create their own narrative as they go, even though they're a small kid, though they're a small kid, right?
Yeah. It's like asking them like, why did she do that to you? And why did you act this way? And why is that a problem? And what happened if this wasn't a problem? And they'd be like, pow.
So really like we got to start these conversations like young and really meaningful, purposeful conversations. Yeah. But even as adults, I feel like these conversations matter. So we can't really forget that. Okay.
Definitely. And that's even like with adults too, we're allowed to differentiate, for example, sarcasm, right? But a kid can differentiate sarcasm. One example is that like my client yesterday, her mom died at the age of 4. So she has a lot of like abandonment issues. And she found out that like her work wasn't perfect enough, like her content on YouTube was because of her aunt when she was like 4. They said that like if you are good, your mom will come back. But that's sarcasm. As adults, we know that. But how is a 4-year-old gonna know that?
Yeah, that's really like misleading, misguided.
Yeah,
I was like, nah, yeah. So that will not do well saying that. And as a kid, yeah, you don't interpret that properly. You can't.
No. They're going to be like, you know what? I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to do this. Mom's going to come back. I'm going to make her bed.
Yeah. No, that doesn't.
That's trauma.
That's trauma, basically. Yeah.
That's why every little thing you do will affect the kid. But you have to reassure them that you love them and you'll be back. Even if you go to work, you'll be there for them.
inevitably will be traumatized, but it's how we view them. Like it's our narrative that really will, and the reframing that goes on to kind of bring us to at least a better future with our relationships.
Like, for example, I have this like weird traumatic issue I have. Like, I'm scared of biking certain ways because I got stitches when I was in grade 3, but I do not let anyone touch that. To me, it was a traumatic experience, but a lot of people would be like, just stitches, but I'm like, I don't want it to burst.
Oh, right, fair enough.
And even though like a lot of people think traumatic events are like painful events, but what is pain, right?
It's like mental, right?
And everybody has different sensitivity. We can't just like put them in one box. Yeah.
That's true. I drank milk that was spoiled at dinner, and then that was disgusting. And now I always get weirded out when I drink milk. Like I always just get weirded out. I can literally remember that time when it was disgusting, and I just can't. But I love milk, but I always think about that one time. And it wasn't like a pain, like a hurt pain. It's just like a gross pain. Right. So trauma can be it's just memories. It's just
memories. Yeah. That's all it is. Yeah. I had the same one with oatmeal. I remember like at 5 a.m. my dad would used to wake me up for like my swimming practices, and my dad wouldn't like make the oatmeal proper because we were rushing, and he just forced me to eat it. I'm just like,
oh no, gross oatmeal, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, I'm sure people that are watching, listening can think of their own like funny traumas. Like we can like it's not funny, but like when you think of like how silly they can be at some points, you realize they're not all pain, like physical pain. Sometimes they're just mental pain. So if we treat them all the same with like, and address them for what they are, acknowledge them, and then work through them, then we can get through, or just acknowledge a small trauma or a large significant, right?
Basically.
Cool. So intimate, right? What in love, partners, relationships like this, what personal challenges can we overcome to bring ourselves fully into and ready for a serious, committed, and fulfilling relationship? That's the question I'm going to just, expand, because I mean, everyone wants a relationship. Everyone deserves, love when they're ready to bring themselves into it, right?
Okay, I'm going to redirect this question to you.
Sure.
How do you know that you're ready for a serious relationship?
That's true.
I just want to know.
I feel like, and I've kind of realized this over the past, I don't know, months, year. It's like if you can date yourself, if you can spend time alone, like, and not alone, but in solitude, like just realize being alone, being comfortable with being with yourself, find appreciation for yourself, who you are. They say love yourself, but I think that's just a very simplistic way of saying it. But if you really appreciate yourself and, acknowledge your shortcomings, your truths, and enough about yourself, you spent that time alone, then you're in a better position to bring yourself to someone 100%, else fully.
100%.
Right? That's kind of my lesson recently, right?
Yeah. I totally agree with you, actually. And the scary thing is that, like, even though like you might love yourself when you're alone, sometimes you just run over the same narrative. They're like, oh, I love this about myself. I love this. I'm so adventurous, spontaneous. But sometimes when you bring another person into your life, they become a mere reflection of the ugly parts of you, the truth that you've been hiding in the back. And that's what I've learned recently, that like I had to remove certain things in order for me to keep a relationship. Because I had ugly parts that I thought they were good. But what I learned from that is that no matter what point you're in your life, you'll never be truly ready because you'll always have shit to deal with.
You're not going to be just perfect. You're not going to wake up and just be perfect and
have
dealt with timing. Everything and you're good to go.
Exactly.
Right. Is this kind of like shadow work basically is what you're talking about in a sense?
Yes.
So shadow work, would you say it's very, very important for like bringing yourself into a relationship?
Definitely. It's like dealing with the ugly parts and being consciously aware of it instead of being like narcissistic. It's like, no, it's part of me. Yeah. It's like, I like this side of me. Like one issue I had to deal with a few months ago was like the idea of control. Going back to the topic, the identity shift. I was trying to control certain aspects of my life and in a way control certain people. That I know, but like that to me came naturally because that's like sales, that's marketing.
It's like the ugly. So it's like marketing had a good thing, but it rears its ugly head. It's like two sides. It's the shadow work part of it, right? It's okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah.
And it was wrong for me to be a healing coach when I was doing shit subconsciously, even though I wasn't really aware of it. It was still bad. And at the time, like in the beginning, like I was like, there's no moment that you're ever ready. That's what I can say. Because even in like 3 years ago, even though you're different from who you are now, you still had problems before. You still have problems now. You'll still have problems in the future. Right.
That's true. That's a big fact. Because I mean, we all deal with the same problem right now with, for example, the pandemic, and you can make excuses about problems and feel like your time is going to come one day, but it comes down to like there's
you make your time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing too with relationship, sometimes, yes, the person is good for you, but like, are they helping you in your growth? Right. Like they reflect that mirror reflection of you, of your dirty side, but like, are they willing to be there with you as you like remove it? And if not, then that person isn't meant for you. And essentially with like the idea of like spiritual term, that soul contract is done. You can't force them to come back if their mission in their life was pretty finished.
Soul contract. I've never heard that. I don't think I've heard that quote or that saying.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. You can't, it's just letting go, right? Detaching yourself from things, holding on to things. And that's fair enough. Cool. Okay. And how about like boundary setting? Because I know I think you had a post about this recently. What can we talk about boundaries? Because I feel like in intimate relationships, boundaries are important to set and to Big understand time. For yourself, right?
I had a lot of issues with this, like since I was a kid, really. And it trickled down to like my past relationships where basically when I was a kid, I was always like, I grew up with an anxious attachment. So I was always like looking for love, like, oh my God, I need to be in a relationship. That's who I was, like boy crazy before. And then basically with that like concept, I never had boundaries. If a guy wanted to be with me and like, oh, let's go out to eat, let's go here, I'm like, okay. I was looking for validation, like being wanted. I kind of like let go of myself long ago, like my dreams and stuff, just to be with that person. And that's detrimental because if you cannot show up for you, how can you show up for the other person when they're going through shit? You won't be able to deal with it because you're not walking your talk.
That's true.
Right.
You'll do that, right?
So whatever you preach, you got to do it with all aspects of your life.
Definitely, 100%. Yeah, you have to. And so, okay.
And that's when you become a leader.
Leaders lead by example. I feel like bosses will tell you what to do, but leaders will show you.
Exactly.
Right? That makes sense? Okay.
Exactly.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I feel like we've kind of talked about a few areas within these spheres, interpersonal, parents, intimate. I didn't have this written down, but before we kind of go away from these like relationship dynamics, what about the relationship with yourself? How can we like wrap up this conversation? Because people I don't know where do you go to have that relationship or that talk with yourself. How do you begin? You know what I mean? Like where do you start from there? I think you said earlier, just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go that route.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, how do I say this? My first life coach, she told me about like the idea of who is your ideal partner, right? Write it down on the list, everything. Now be that person.
Oh,
yeah.
Fair enough.
So you don't become dependent on that person for certain needs, like happiness, money, for example. You fulfill everything, and that person's just adding value into your life.
That's powerful. That is.
Yeah. And that's when boundaries start happening because I had to fulfill those areas. And then whenever like a guy I was talking to in the past was trying like, oh, let's do this and this, I'm like, oh no, because I need to fulfill this project so I can get this for myself.
Validation, right? It's
exactly. I want to get validation from me, not from anyone else. And that's when you release beliefs of like, I'm not enough. I have to people please. Perfection. Because once you start working your own shit, just know that like every step of the way matters. Instead of looking 5,000 steps ahead, just start by one. And in no time, you'll get to that 5,000. Because if you're going to think like, oh my God, 5,000 step, I'm going to finally get 100K, but I'm not making 100K now. I'm like, who cares? That person beside you isn't, but she's starting.
Yep. Yeah. It's an important way to look at it. Yeah. Letting go, just releasing like pressure and, you know, forcing outcomes. Right. Yeah.
Have you ever dealt with boundary issues before?
I have. I feel like I haven't even had like, I didn't really understand what that meant for the longest time. Like, seriously.
Interesting.
Yeah. Cause man, like as guy or as a person, like these some things aren't taught to you in a curriculum at school. What is a boundary? Nah. You know what I mean? That word was unfamiliar to me for so long. So I was overstepping my boundaries with myself, and I was letting people do that with me for a long time. I feel like I was a nice guy in a lot of scenarios, and I don't want to just be nice and be people pleaser and be, you know what I mean? I kind of want to know which boundaries for me I can set. And so that's kind of something I've learned about once I realized what boundary setting means. You know what I mean? I didn't get taught that anywhere, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something I'm working on learning more about. But having like knowing what it means and knowing where to apply it to your life, that's like the golden first step. It's just being self-aware. Yeah. Right?
Definitely.
So, no, definitely.
And even like, for example, like a lot of us growing up, we don't know what boundary setting is, and we try to frame ourselves like a nice person, so we're liked and everybody loves us, right? But when we do that, we're hurting ourselves, because like it's like saying that we're not enough and they have to like me, so I feel enough. Right? Yeah,
100%. So yeah, and I just want to touch on boundary setting, because I know that plays a role in intimate, but also, like you said, yourself. And so that's a cool place to go with it. So I have a friend, okay, her name is Jess. She's a life coach. She does life coaching, right? Which is similar, I guess, to healing coaches. She's been on the podcast, okay? So she uses a really great metaphor that I think you'd connect with. You'd probably understand a lot, where she is about to pour. She's like, she likes to pour into people's lives. That's her way of saying it, pouring into people's lives.
I love that.
But in order to fill someone else's cup, you don't want to pour from your cup and now be empty. So what you have to do is you have to ensure your cup is not only full, but overflowing. That's the goal. That's what she says. And so basically you have to be working on yourself constantly in order to be able to serve others. Yeah. So my question here is just, what sort of habits, actions, mantras, or routines do you do in order to be able to continue to pour into people's lives?
Oh, that's actually good. I love that metaphor she uses. I created a post the other day about that. And essentially it was like, even though you're in a relationship, date yourself. Because if you don't date yourself, if you're not making sure your cup is full, how can you show up for the other person when they're going through stuff? How can you give them love? You can't give love to yourself. And if you're giving love to them, at the end of the day, you're not going to be satisfied. You're not going to be happy. Because you're going to be like, is the relationship going well? Am I enough? Does he actually like me? And then that's when limiting beliefs trickle up. And it's kind of like, if those beliefs are stemming up again, you're doing more self-sabotage, because you're finding ways why that relationship isn't working. And then you'll find reasons like, you know what? I don't think like this is working. Maybe he doesn't think I'm enough. Maybe he's not the one. Or like, maybe he's not the right one right now. But you have to cut that. Give time to yourself and let yourself rest. And the idea of rest is literally just sit down, just like go back to one.
Yes, you said, I saw you had a post that said on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And that's why I like my rest days on Sundays. I would love to work 6 days a week at my job, but I cannot work 7 days. I need that one day to just rest and do whatever I want to do for myself.
Whatever you want.
Like random.
Yes.
Just
fill your inner child.
Much. Sorry?
Fill your inner child. Whatever that like little baby Tex wants to do what he wants.
Drive. That's my
just
favorite
drive.
thing.
Yeah, just drive. Yeah.
Okay. So rest.
Yeah, because like, for example, sometimes I have this issue where like on a rest day, I'm like, you know what? I need to do this on like website work. I need to do this, engage with like my Facebook community. It's like, nah. Even though I do it right now, I'm only giving 50% because subconsciously I feel a 5 out of 10. Therefore, I'm going to give 5 out of 10. Even though that's a 10 out of 10, I'm not going to give my full if I'm not complete right now.
Would they notice that?
Energetically, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, sometimes when you look through a post, you know that it's good, but like something feels off about it.
Yeah.
That message sends.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. That's a good way of looking at it. Okay. So rest is the number one thing. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Did you have any questions for me? I know you said you had some, and I don't know if you didn't write anything down, but like, is there anywhere you want to take this podcast before we kind of wrap up?
Yeah. So like this whole idea of like healing, right? How's your healing journey been for 2020?
Whoa. That's
what?
Question,
yeah. Because I remember on the phone call we were talking about earlier how it's either like you go home and go to bed.
Yes.
How have you been doing that yourself?
How I've been doing that is, well, it's been tough for me because I'm doing these monthly challenges. So starting in September, I haven't been no drinking, no alcohol, no smoking. So
That's
and then
good.
no sip, no smoke. And then in October, I started no caffeine, and I'm still doing both of those. And I just added the added sugar or fast food. So I'm cutting out a lot of things in my life that I was very used to and dependent upon. So I find it like life is different. You know what I mean? It's different from what it's ever felt like. I've never done this before. I've never done all these challenges at once. So that's been like the toughest part. But I'm just really trying to stay focused and aligned with what I have to do.
That's good.
This, I feel like it serves me, and I get to help other people. And so being able to be there for other people and wake up and serve and be there for others keeps me aligned so much. It gives me value. It gives me purpose. And I like to go out and give that back to people.
Yeah.
Sometimes I lose sleep. So my body is going through hell sometimes with the lack of caffeine and the lack of sleep some days. So I just really try to keep myself mentally and emotionally there on the days that I'm physically not
there.
Because something's gonna be lower and higher. So it's like
it's an edible
like levels
life.
of volume.
Yeah.
They go up and down, and that's gonna happen. You're never gonna be fully balanced, but you got to know which areas drop. So if I get 5 hours of sleep one night, you best bet I'm getting like 7.5 the next night. Because if I know if I just keep going that route, everything's gonna shift
Tip over.
that way.
Tip over. Yeah, I totally get you. Sometimes I put in 3 hours of sleep because of an assignment, but then the next night I'm like sleeping for 12 hours.
Got to do it, right?
Yeah.
It's got to balance out.
Exactly.
I'm just looking for balance.
You live in a balance lifestyle.
Yeah, balance is healing for me. It's balance, knowing how to balance, why to balance, and then how to balance.
And one more question.
Yeah.
So if you were to look at your year right now, pretend it's December 31st, 2020 already. If you were to describe your year, one word, what would it be?
One word for my year. A vibe. Oh, that's 2 words. Sorry. Remember when? Okay, so there's this it's like goals, the 2020 goals. I think you kind of give me that idea, right? And I have that goal list, and so I'm really excited to get to December 31st because I want to assess everything I said I do. I feel like I hit about like 60 to 70% of what I wanted to do.
That's good.
I know. I think that's
really
pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna look at it like accomplished, like good enough.
Yeah.
I can't be like, oh, amazing, bro, because there's a pandemic. So I can't just be like,
but you tried your best. You still made your way around this. Not an excuse. Pandemic's a pandemic. It's like what next?
Yeah. It's been different, but I'm gonna be happy with where I am at the end of this year for sure.
That's good.
Just getting the season done and keep it pushing forward. So yeah. Okay, so this is my last question. Okay. This is the question I ask all my guests. Do you know the question? Okay, awesome. Cool. And so the question is, what sets your soul on fire?
Oh,
that's the question for. I
like
haven't asked this one yet, and so just want to hear your honest answer.
To be honest, okay, I have this saying where my year has to be different from last year's, and it has to be elevating no matter what.
Okay.
And what sets my soul on fire, I would say, is getting comfortable being uncomfortable, always trying new things. And if I'm not trying, I'm not growing. Yes. And in terms of growth, it would trickle to a lot of aspects of my life. as of right now, it's like all the healing that's like been applied on like all my clients and like the changes and like the thank yous I've been getting. Yeah, like I'm just like
it's fulfilling, right?
Yeah, it's just
yeah.
I don't know how to describe it, but like that just brings me so much happiness. Like there are days where I'm not feeling as like 100% until I get that call. I'm just like I can sleep well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The impact, it's impactful, right? You get to give impact, give value. And so that's, I see why that would set your soul on fire, is getting to do that.
Is knowing that like I'm making a difference in the world. That's what sets my soul on fire. Going roundabout. Yeah.
I mean, we made it.
We
made it. We made it home. All right. So
go to bed.
Go home, go to bed. Yes.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, you're a real one. You already know. And if you're not subscribed on YouTube or following the podcast on Apple or Spotify, then kind of confused. Like, what are you even doing? You made it this far. No, but I really appreciate you guys. Thank you. I'm so grateful you listened, watched, and I hope you learned something. I hope you took something away from this episode. Me just editing and watching it, I just, every time I rewatch it, I take something else from it. So I think it's a really powerful episode. Share with somebody that you think would benefit or appreciate this episode as well. And yeah, just stay tuned for more episodes. You know, we drop episodes weekly around here. Check the Instagram for all content and to stay up to date with what's going on in our community. That's Vibing Out WT, obviously. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. This has been Vibing Out with Texony. I'm your host, Texony, aka Mr. World Vibe. And I'm signing out. Peace.